Sometimes we don't want to face the truth because it might shatter the comforting stories we tell ourselves. Think about what you grew up hearing. Love will save you. True love is unconditional, pure, redemptive. Find the right person and they'll heal the parts of you that you've never had the courage to confront. From childhood, from fairy tales, from our favorite songs, there was always this whisper planted deep in our minds. One day, someone will show up and make everything finally okay. And you believed it, not because you're foolish or naive, but because you were never really taught how to see through that fantasy. What if that promise was never meant to be kept? What if the love you've been desperately seeking is not your salvation but a strategy someone is using? And what if nature, the same force you've been told to fear or misunderstand, saw all of this coming? Nature doesn't compose fairy tales. Nature is surgical. It cuts through masks, through myths, through the emotional comfort zones we build around our egos. When it looked at love, at women, at how we relate to one another, nature didn't see something pretty or polite. It saw reality. And let's be honest, most of us, especially men, aren't ready for that kind of truth. Here's the hard truth. You don't actually love her. You love the idea of her, this perfect reflection of who you wish you were. You love how her presence validates you, how it reassures you that you are enough. But validation isn't love. What you're calling love might just be a carefully curated illusion that keeps you emotionally obedient. To understand this, it helps to remember that women in our society have long had to find power where it was allowed, because they were denied overt visibility and strength. When swords weren't available, they learned to fight with silence. When direct control was off limits, they learned to wield influence. Not because they're inherently manipulative, but because they were steered into the shadows while men occupied the spotlight. And that's exactly where modern men trip up. You see softness and mistake it for innocence. You see adaptability and interpret it as fragility. You see kindness and believe it's unconditional. You assume she's fragile, that her love has no strings attached, that her tenderness is pure. But here's the thing, it's not. It's power that's been refined over centuries, practiced, rehearsed, and executed with precision when necessary. While you spill your emotions and label it vulnerability, she's listening, keenly scanning your words for leverage. You dream of soulmates and happily ever afters, but she's already calculating the cost of closeness, measuring need against control, desire against influence, not out of malice, but out of survival. She learned early on that the one who sees the game but doesn't talk about it wins. And you were raised to romanticize her, to elevate her to such a pedestal that it blinds you to her strategies. You don't see what's happening because you don't want to. You'd rather live in the dream, the muse, the healer, the good girl. But what if those roles are masks? Masks she learned to wear because they work. This isn't an attack on women. It's an exposure of the story men tell themselves about women. So long as you believe she's morally superior by default, so long as you think her affection is purely selfless and motive-free, you will keep handing over your agency in exchange for emotional security. And she will accept that power not because she's out to get you, but because the system taught her to. You are not being loved. You are being handled. And the scariest part? You enjoy it. You crave the comfort, the worship, the emotional anesthesia that spares you from facing your own issues. Because the second you stop needing her as your rescue mission, you have to confront what's behind your need. And that's far more terrifying than heartbreak ever could be. Fear is tricky. It masquerades in many disguises, and one of its favorites is romantic devotion. You think you love her purely, that you're offering yourself freely. But look deeper. What you're really offering is a bargain. If I give you my heart, will you fix the parts of me I'm afraid to face? You're not really seeking a partner. You're hunting for a solution to your problems. And while you lay your soul on the table in search of comfort, she is watching. Not your words exactly, but your needs. Not because she's cruel, but because every vulnerability you reveal becomes a roadmap, your emotional pressure points, laid bare. She learns them fast, not to hurt you, but to position herself at the center of your psyche, where you can't bear to be without her. Nature saw all this. It recognized that what we call love is often just a subtle contest for emotional real estate. Who controls the pace of closeness, who pulls away first, who holds out longest. These aren't questions about affection. They're questions about power. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The person who needs less always ends up controlling more. You shower her with everything: time, attention, identity, and you call that honesty. She gives you just enough of what you crave to keep you chasing, and you call that connection. But here's what it really is: choreography. Society has taught women to master influence without ever showing you they're leading, and it has taught men to think they're conquering even as they submit. It's not her fault. It's not your fault. It's centuries of conditioning, men dominating the external world, women mastering the internal one. In today's version of love, you walk right into this trap with a smile. She doesn't need to argue. She only needs to suggest. She doesn't demand. She simply desires. And by doing so, she quietly shapes you, your choices, your identity, without ever raising her voice. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. You call her mysterious because you don't understand her. And you don't understand her because you've never challenged your own myths. You still operate under the illusion that love is about unity, when she knows it's about leverage. When she pulls away, it haunts you, not because she's gone, but because your reflection leaves with her. As Enns would say, you never loved her. You loved the way she made you feel about yourself. She was the stage where you performed your worth. And once the stage is gone, all you're left with is silence and truth. She didn't lie to you. She just stopped playing the part you wrote for her. You saw not her, but your idea of her. And when she refused to perform that role, you called her cold, you called her cruel. But maybe the real betrayal was yours, for loving a fantasy and expecting her to live inside it. Nature didn't condemn women. It condemned men who refused to grow up, men who want muses instead of mirrors, angels instead of fully realized human beings with all their glorious, terrifying complexity. If you're willing to stop blaming her, then you're ready to look at yourself, not with guilt or shame, but with clarity. And from that clarity, something radical can begin. Not the end of love, but its transformation. Because here's another twist. You've been told that love is the highest virtue, that selflessness is the mark of a good person. But what if that selflessness is just another disguise for emotional dependency? What if beneath the grand gestures and poetic declarations lies a quiet fear? If I don't give everything, she won't stay. And so you give more, compromise more, erase parts of yourself to become what you think she wants. You call it nobility, but it's really submission dressed up as romance. And while you believe it's brave, she experiences something entirely different. Control, not through force, but through her mere presence and your willingness to orbit around her approval. Here's the truth nature hinted at. Love rooted in need is never equal. She may not ask you to change, but you change anyway. She may not demand your obedience, but you hand it over regardless. Why? Because you convinced yourself that her acceptance is your salvation. But she never asked to be your savior. She was simply being herself, and you turned that into a mirror of your worth. And when that mirror cracks, you don't just feel loss, you feel collapse. Because what you were protecting wasn't love, it was the story. If she loves me, I am whole. If she stays, I matter. But stories aren't truth. When reality intrudes, you call it betrayal. Nietzsche would call it awakening. The lie isn't that she has power. The lie is that you didn't see it. You labeled her gentle, but she was observant. You called her nurturing, but she was strategic. You thought she surrendered, but she was choosing. Always choosing because she understood something you never did. The one who sees the dynamic clearly holds the key. And now the illusion begins to crack. Think back to moments when she smiled. Behind that smile lay calculation. Remember the way she seemed to anticipate your smallest emotional shifts even before you voiced them. You thought she was intuitive, and she was, but for her, intuition is a survival tool. It's how she stays one step ahead in a world that never gave her direct power. It only gave her the power to shape. This isn't about blame. It's about seeing reality. We live in a world that sells love as mutual surrender but practices it as mutual leverage, where vulnerability is hailed as virtue but used as currency. The moment you recognize this, you have a choice. Grow up or break down. Most people choose to break. They go search for another muse, another emotional performance partner, saying, "This time will be different," when in truth, the roles haven't changed, just the players. And until you stop needing her to play the part you wrote, you'll never meet the person behind the mask. So what happens when the mask finally comes off? When you stop chasing roles and begin seeing reality, you'll notice what's always been there. Not manipulation or malice, but instinct. A woman keenly aware of her lack of institutional power, mastering relational power instead. Not because she wants to control, but because that's the only power she's ever been allowed. So ask yourself, are you ready for her to be real with all her complexities? Because only then can you truly see yourself. And only then does love stop being a story and start becoming a revolution. If this opened your eyes, if it made you uncomfortably close to yourself, then share this, like it, and subscribe, not for entertainment, but because you're done with illusions and you want to see things as they are.